Hey, everybody, welcome to Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you with us. This is a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe that through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journey through this thing called life. Hey, brothers, welcome back to the Black Men with Purpose. We took a little extended break, things going on, but I'm just checking in, see how we all doing for real, because it's been a heavy couple of weeks, couple of months. It's been a heavy year. A lot going on in the world. We got the government shut down, important elections going on, the No Kings rally across the country. It feels like the energy in the air is kind of really starting to shift. And it's really one of those times where you just can't scroll past the headlines. You can feel it. And it brings up a question that we've been sitting with for a while. What does leadership really look like right now? And we're not just talking about up at the top, because we know that that's not high quality leadership up at the top. You know, we know who's in their office and who's not doing their job. But I think the real question that we want to find out is, how are we showing up down here where we're at? And maybe not down here, but here where we're at. So today we're going to talk about no kings, no crown, leadership, accountability. And we want to talk about the power of showing up. So as we usually get started, I want to start with, hey, you know, how y'all feeling? And I'm going to start with the man that took off his Porsche jacket before we started recording. But Dr. B. Dr. B, how are you feeling?
I'll put it back on if I need to. What you saying? No, good to see y'all fellas. You know, like you said, it's a bunch of mixed emotions, but you know, I was talking to another brother that's a fire chief down in Georgia today. I was like, hey, our people was built for this. You know, we've gone through this in various segments as a people, and as he put it, it's just our turn, B. It's just our turn to step up. It's our turn to show resilience. It's our turn to show the next generation, how do you get through, you know, a wannabe dictator? How did we get through a society that didn't ask for us to be here? And then on top of that, when we put together the things we need to do to be successful, then they'll turn around and try to take it from us. So I said, it's just our turn, you know? And so with that, you know, I take the challenge of being there for the next generation, you know? I really, you know, I got to change my way of thinking. I've talked to, you know, people that I know that didn't use their vote correctly. And I'm like, hey, I ain't got time to talk to you. You know, I gotta, you know, like you said, I gotta come back and be like, okay, what can I do to educate people in a sense of understanding that you do play a vital part in how we are viewed in America, you know. And I want to talk back a little bit later about, John, what you put out earlier this week about how we have people of color doing these interviews about how we're being shortchanged. And it's like, we're actually just playing into the narrative. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to us, you know, extending our knowledge reach, if you will, of, hey, how can we survive this? You know, we're gonna survive. How can we survive this and come out better? How can we survive this and come out, you know, being better prepared for, because this ain't gonna be the end. It's gonna happen again. So we just got to be prepared. So how do we prepare us and our people for what's next? So I'm looking forward to the conversation, fellas. I'm done. Pass it on to the next brother that wants to tap in.
Come on, Ray, talk to us.
All right. No, as Byron said, I'm happy to be back with y'all. Honestly, it was a great summer. It was a great break. But I honestly missed this. I missed the camaraderie. I missed the conversations. But how I'm feeling right now, I would say I'm disappointed, but I expected this. I honestly expected this. I mean, before we took our break, I expected what was coming or what has happened to come. But regardless, I'm still feeling more recharged. I'm feeling more determined. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can collaborate and come up with some ideas as to encourage folks as to what they can do to try and make a difference. Because again, as Byron said, there was a lot of folks out here that misused their vote or didn't vote at all, and because of that, we're in the situation that we're in again when we went through it 8 years ago. So when it started 8 years ago. So I'm recharged. I'm more determined. And again, I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say, and looking forward to continuing on with the season. So that being said, I'll pass it on over to Rod.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, fellas? To everyone out there in viewing land, it's good to be back, and I think you're right. There is a lot going on, and I've been spending a little bit of time just thinking about that, and I've come to the conclusion that for me, it's actually helped me get more focused on the things that I absolutely have control over. So I have a saying: control the controllables, and so with that, I pose that sentiment to myself every day. What is it that you can control today, and control that? I don't and haven't gotten really caught up in the rhetoric and the back and forth, because I think that what I'm hoping is that whatever's going on in the country, in the world, that you absolutely don't like or don't agree with, I would ask everyone to ask themselves a question: what are you doing about it that supports you and what you control? And so that's kind of what I've been doing, and just being even more diligent about my daily devotion, my studying, reading about historical things that have happened, which adds quite a bit of insight to the old sentiment that history repeats itself. And so yeah, and I just want to encourage everyone to not be moved by things that you can't control. And if there's something that you can do of a positive nature, then do that. Because I think what today's environment tells us is that we have to be about doing, right? Because a lot of people are talking, but what is it that you can do? Like today, election day in a lot of places, did you go vote? Right? No matter what you think about it, they're anticipating it to be a very low turnout for elections around the country. Did you go vote? So things like that is kind of what I am locked in on. But it is absolutely good to be back with you, brothers. So I'll turn it back over to Brother John.
Hey, man, y'all delivered. I'm really inspired by what Brother Rod said, inspired by everything said. And I echo those sentiments. It's good to be back. We're going to do a quick sprint to close out the year. I'm going to have to get with the fellas and check their schedules, but I think we're going to give y'all at least 2 to 3. I'm banking on 3, but we'll see what the fellas say. 3 more episodes before we close out this season and then come back. But I am feeling the same way. It's really made me stop doing this whole, oh my God, are these politicians going to stand up and all that, because all that's out of my control, and they got their reasons for why. You know, we know that 95 or more percent of all people in Congress are in the pocket of AIPAC. You know what I'm saying? So it's so many different things, and they've got their own agendas, and we understand all that. But the power of what I can do in my specific area, you know, and I have been working on that. Me and a friend of mine, we are working tirelessly to get a nonprofit that'll employ youth in San Antonio for the summer. We're working to get that off the ground. We've been working on that for a while now. We're hoping to really get that off the ground here in 2026. I've been working on building community and being an advocate for community, because in a time like this, especially, you know, obviously the court ruled, and they're going to, in spite of the Truth Social posts of y'all's president, SNAP is still going to do partial disbursements of benefits. But, you know, looking at things like, you know, community-based help and fundraising, food banks and things like that. And, you know, I've been really trying to keep my ear to the ground on things like that. So it's very exciting. It's, you know, tumultuous time, but man, Dr. B hit the nail on the head. History repeats itself. We were built for moments like this. It's just time for us to stand up and show what we're made of. We're well past the point of getting past our indignation of, we should have been past all of this, and this is going to set us back. We here now. So now what? And, you know, Rod is so wise in saying we've got to get back to, okay, so I can't control what the big government is doing. I can't control what the Department of War is doing. You know, I can't control none of those things, but what can I do? What impact can I make? And by operating in that impact, who can I inspire? You know, who can I motivate in those moments? So it's an exciting time in that perspective. Daunting and feeling all the feelings, but yeah, that's where I'm at. So, you know, setting the scene for No Kings, No Crowns. And we want to give credit to Brother Ray for kind of setting us up to kind of talk about these things. And obviously the No Kings rally were a couple of weeks ago. You know, the news cycle spinning so fast, it's almost like it's old news, but I think it's important conversation, and I'd love to hear our perspectives on that. So, you know, I think it's a good question, or it's a good idea to look at it from the perspective of, you know, the No King rallies, who's setting them up, what they're standing for, how do we feel impacted by them, or how do we feel that they've had an impact? I do think they were impactful, and I think there was a lot of important things that came from it. But I want to pass it to Brother Ray to kind of talk about those No King rallies, how you feel about them, if you think they were effective, and, you know, what your opinion is on that.
Well, my opinion, and thank you, John, for giving me credit. I just came up, I know Rod has said something about, you know, coming up with ideas as to what to talk about, and being that these things have been happening, I just thought this was important for us to talk about. But I do think that the No Kings rallies have been helpful. I think they have been impactful because now we're seeing people from all races, creeds, and colors come together again, you know, and peacefully protest. You know, and honestly, the last time that I can think of that everybody, regardless of, well, I should say a majority of the people that, regardless of political party or race, creed, or color, came together was literally 9/11. So now you're seeing people from, like I said, all races, all religions in the streets protesting what's going on, because this is a democracy. No matter who is running the country right now, this is still the greatest country in the world. I mean, we took pride in our service to this country. So it was good to see people here in Florida. There was a No Kings rally not too far from my home in Brandon, Florida. There was a big one in Tampa. There was one up in the Villages, which has typically been a conservative town. But there were the two No Kings rallies that were there, and even during the presidential race, there were a ton of people that were out, making their voices heard, saying vote for Kamala Harris, or that this is a democracy and we don't have any kings here. So to see that come together, I thought was absolutely important, and I think it was definitely impactful. And knowing that another one is coming, I believe that's going to be just as impactful as well. The only thing that I had to say negative about it was, now I won't say negative. Let me change that. I know my wife wanted to participate. I wanted to participate. But the one thing that I said to myself, and I listened to a lot of other people of color say, I refuse to go participate myself. Reason being is because we know how it is when something negative happens. If there was somebody from, it always seems like from the right will start some violence, and the people that were there peacefully protesting get the blame for it. And namely, it's normally Black people. Black Lives Matter got blamed for those peaceful demonstrations when somebody from the far right started some trouble. Charlie Kirk got killed, and then here it is. All of a sudden, it wasn't anybody Black, wasn't anybody from the left. It was a far right conservative person that killed him, but yet there was folks protesting or threatening HBCUs when it had nothing to do with us. So for me, when my wife said she thought it was important, I'm like, yeah, baby, I agree with you. It is important to go participate, but this is one of those times where, pardon my language, we're going to stay our Black asses here at home, because we always seem to get blamed for any kind of negativity that goes on. And the last thing I want to have happen is to be out somewhere peacefully protesting and somebody, attacks my wife or, says something negative or start something with me or somebody that's close nearby. And, I'm going to stand up for those that may not be able to stand up for themselves. So as much as I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing the No Kings rallies happen, I just had to be cognizant that we as people of color always seem to get blamed for any kind of negativity that may go on. So that's where I was on that one, brothers. And I don't want to start rambling, so I'm going to pass the mic on to whoever may want to jump in and discuss this next.
You got it, Dr. Rod. As far as the No Kings, I like the fact that people from all races, creeds, and colors, backgrounds was coming together. I thought that was amazing. And I'm gonna keep my comments short. At the end of the day, though, all the people that showed up, I just want to make sure they go to the polls, because what is misleading is and it's part of the GOP playbook. They don't care if you march. They don't care if you march. They don't care if you show up. They don't care if you protest. As a matter of fact, they, like you, and we're going back to Ray's point, they want you to act up, because now guess what we're doing? We can see now that you saw how now 47 wants every state to have a rapid response National Guard, 500-member rapid response. So they want us to protest, march, act up, start vandalizing, because that just gives him that excuse that, he can use this rapid response team. But the thing I go back to is like people, I don't think people understand the power of their vote and how they can impact change in their community just by showing up to the polls. It's something free. Yep, you got to take time out of your day. You either got to get up early one morning or leave work and get home late one day, or if you're fortunate to be in a state where you can do your mail-in ballots, but it costs something. It's going to cost us something to make change. And the thing right now for us, it's not costing us as much, even as much as my parents or our grandparents. It costs them, some of them, their lives. It costs them their dignity. It costs them something. It's not really, it's really costing us as much as it did 2 generations ago. No, the answer is no. So yeah, we just have to be able to just get out there and just do what we got to do. So I'm excited about what happened in the community, about the people coming together, but we got to take the next steps, and hopefully we'll see the results of tonight in a couple of states. If people actually took heed and actually, tried to make a difference. So like I said, I'll keep it short. So I'll turn it over to Brother Rod.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. B. Yeah, I am, I won't even say conflicted about it. I certainly appreciate the fact that people exercise their right to assemble and protest. And the fact that for the most part it was done, without any incident. That's the way that it should be. However, as I look back in history and, I just wonder, so what now? What next? And of course, today being an election day, as Dr. B said, time will tell, if people actually utilize the one instrument that they do have for the things that they want to see changed, and it's their vote. But I will tell you, whether it's No Kings, whether it's marching after we witnessed George Floyd's death, or any other incident that we don't like and want to protest against, I just want to make sure that that we have a plan for what it is that we do want, right? Because I will tell you, for as much as, people on the left loathe the people on the right and vice versa, there's a lot of questions about the 2-party system to begin with, because again, I don't know how many people are willing to actually take the time to investigate what their elected representatives are actually doing versus what they're campaigning with, because a lot of times those things look very different, so I would just encourage people to, if you're going to show up, make sure you follow through. And that means holding people accountable, going to town hall meetings, letting, these elected officials know what you like about what they're doing, as well as the things that you want to see changed, or at least get an understanding for how they're voting, and just asking, does that represent the constituency? And I think there needs to be more of that and less of the emotional part, right? And I know sometimes that's hard to separate, but I will just say for me, the way that I separate it is to, again, look in the mirror and ask myself, what is it that you're doing? What could you be doing differently or better? And then take action on that. So it's going to always be something, right? Because as you look back in history, I don't know that there's been any perfect politics in America, so I would just say, people be encouraged, to take, whatever action you believe needs to be taken as long as it's, lawful and positive, and then follow through and make sure that, your voice is being heard through whatever platform that you have. So that's my feelings about the No Kings march, the No Kings Day, because I think, again, if you didn't like something that's going on, Project 2025 was made available to the public to consume. And either the public chose not to consume it, or they didn't believe that that could be America as we believe it should be. And if there were some things in there that you didn't like, you had a chance to understand it long before the election last November. So those are my initial thoughts on it, Brother John.
Yeah, like I agree. Just add my own thoughts to the No Kings rally. I think it's important. It's important that we use that right to assemble, that right to protest. It's important to understand it. It's a fundamental part of the political process. This country was founded on protest. That's what the Boston Tea Party and all that was based on, is protest, and it's fundamental. It was important. There were some elements to it that I felt were important. We understand how there's often a use of force against large protests that are majority Black and brown folks. We saw how innocent protesters were treated during the George Floyd protests and the civil unrest during that time. And so I think it was important to let our heavy air quote allies do the heavy lifting on this one. And they showed out in mass. So, there were a lot of safety concerns. And those are some of the questions that we have to ask. I was having a conversation with somebody and I said, hey, man, historically, I used to be out there. I was about that life. We'd have put together rallies, shut down establishments, and done all kinds of stuff, civil unrest. And I was like, but now, I'm a father, a single father at that. And I think sometimes that courage to go out and do things, like, I don't want to say lack of courage, but I think about it like, hey, this could have consequences that impact. So you see a lot of that happening. So I think it was a good idea that it was a lot of other different people involved. And I think it was a big show. We do know that this administration is very emotional. And so seeing how many people were opposed to what they were doing, I think if he wasn't going through such a stage of dementia, it would have hurt him more. But I think, with all those medical issues that they have, I honestly, listening to him and watching him, I think they keep him drugged to a certain extent. And I think it was important. I do see the limiting factors, and I do agree with the idea that we knew Project 2025 was out there. But I do think that it is important to recognize that the Republic was in peril if we were only one election away from this type of chaos. You know what I mean? Like, if we were this solid, we would probably be better structured to survive one terrible leader, one terrible administration. But you look at it and you're like, oh, it's on the verge of crumbling, which makes me think that there's more to it than that. I do think that a lot of the things that we hold dear weren't codified in the right ways, because, somebody can just come in and decide, I don't want to, follow that. We don't want to worry about that, that there's a lot of working. And I think maybe some of the positive is that it's exposing some things, when we thought about it. Tickled me. There was a protester that walked in on Cory Booker while he was giving a speech, and dude was dressed just like Netanyahu. and he came in putting his hands up, talking about, man, Cory Booker, good job. Thank you for voting to continue to keep me armed. And I was like, wow, that's chef's kiss. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. But it's like we used to think, or some of us used to think. I think we're all very intelligent and very aware, but we used to think, oh, well, there's some people on our side and this side. But now we're starting to see there's more collusion than we realize. So I do think it was important. It was just a step or a piece of the puzzle. We found ourselves in this position. And now what do we do to get out of it? And that's a great segue, because we talked about the fact that Project 2025 was so available. It was so easily, fact checking and realizing what they were like. There was no secret. It's just the propaganda machine has to be propagandaing for people to be like, I didn't know they were going to do that. I'm like, this was as obvious as the nose on my face, and I don't have a small nose. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's crazy. And so let's look at the real costs of sitting out. Like right now, the government is shut down. There's real people impacted, not getting paychecks, programs, military. There was just a crash as we started recording in Louisville, Kentucky. There's real impacts, and not voting is a form of voting. It empowers somebody else's agenda. So I'm gonna swing it back to Ray, man. Let's talk about the cost of sitting out.
Man, it's painful. It's painful. I mean, we're looking at it now. I mean, we're talking about it now. Like I said, everybody's discussing it. Going back to, why folks didn't vote. People were saying they didn't like either candidate, but we weren't paying attention, or they weren't paying attention. This man has been running for office. This was three election cycles in a row. You had 4 years of an example of he lied at every chance he got. Like I said, Project 2025 was out there for us all to see. And it was just like I'm going to draw a correlation between that and January 6th. We were basically told, don't believe your lying eyes. And people bought it. The man has been known, he's been a habitual liar his entire life. And yet he's sitting there saying, I don't know anything about Project 2025. And for whatever reason, these, for lack of better words, cult members eat it up, and they go along with it. Well, he said he didn't know anything about it. Okay, well, he also said, that there was a lot of things he said he wasn't going to do, and as soon as he got in there, then boom, he did the exact opposite of what he said. So again, we're all going through it now. Again, if you didn't like Kamala Harris, for what was your valid reason? There had to be a valid reason. The same for me, it was, we go back to 2016. I was not a fan of Hillary Clinton. But for me, out of the two candidates, because again, we've discussed this before, only one of two people is going to win the presidency, either the Democrat or the Republican. And the Republican proved that he was not trustworthy. So she, of course, for me, was, I hate to say it, the lesser of two evils. But this country, it seems like, has always wanted an old white man to run it. Again, the two exceptions that I could think of was not only Barack Obama, but John F. Kennedy. And they didn't want Kennedy to be the president because he was Catholic. So again, it seems like they've always wanted an old white man to run it. If Bernie Sanders had won the Democratic nomination back in 2016, I believe he would have been the president, because he had a big, huge following, but unfortunately, like I said, we're going to have to vote for if there's a candidate that you don't like, not voting is going to help the person like it did this time, is going to help the one person that you really don't want to get in office, get off in office or back in office. You know, we got to do better. One of the things I said that I was going to make sure I do again, especially when the midterm cycles come up next year. I'm going to be out asking people in my neighborhood or in this my voting district, do you need a ride? Do you need a ride? There's going to be like-minded folks. Keep in mind, there's got to be like-minded folks, because I'm not going to help the folks that are against my best interest get a ride to the doggone polls. So I've got to make sure that whoever it is has like interest, and if they need a ride to the polls, and guess what? I'm going to offer rides. You know, because again, we can't continue to go down this road. But what scares me the most is if the Republicans keep control of the House and the Senate, if Trump stays alive, if for whatever reason he manages to live, because I do believe he has dementia or Alzheimer's myself, if he does manage to live, he's not going to leave that White House. This $300 million ballroom, you don't build something like that and you plan to leave. So we have got to do better. We have got to pay attention to what people are doing, what people are saying, and pay attention to their track record. Because again, Trump showed us. We had basically 8-year periods to see exactly who he was. He showed us, and people ignored it, or because he quote unquote gave us some money, you know, for a stimulus check. That's who we were going to support. But you forgot that Biden and Obama also gave stimulus checks. But because Trump put his name on something, that you believe, that's what you believe in. So we just got to do better, fellas. I'm feeling like I'm starting to ramble. So whoever may want to jump in here, I'm gonna relinquish this.
Whoever may want to jump in, I'll jump in. Listen, and I was just talking. Here I am back again, like I never left. Nah, that was powerful what you said. You know, we're seeing the impacts of not showing up, and I think it's important for us to be able to define what showing up is. Obviously, we've got to vote. We see that the impact of all of that, and you know, when you talked about why people didn't select Kamala Harris, because she was a Black woman. I was like, y'all didn't even want a white woman, man. Like, don't get me wrong, I got lost in the sauce. I believed that we could do it in 107 days, but you know, then I had to remember, this is America. Man, they could have ran Hitler out there, man, and they would have been like, well, you know, I think he's learned from all his mistakes, and man, he said he's gonna do a better stimulus check than Trump. Like Trump is just awful. Like, just everything about him is awful, and people are like, I want that, man. Racism is a hell of a drug, man. Racism is a hell of a drug. But yeah, you know, it is disgusting. It is, you know, it's costly. It's cost real people. Hospitals are closing all over the country, especially in rural and underserved areas. They're having to pump money into banks because they are fearing an explosion, the balloon popping. They're putting all this money into AI, but all the reports are saying that AI they've not figured out a way to really make real money off of AI, even though they're pouring all this money into it. And then the problem is to do AI, they've got to go into these areas, and it's a bunch of supercomputers, and they take a lot of water, and they take a lot of natural resources, and then they want to put them in underserved communities, which is a form of environmental racism. So, you know, it's real impacts. EPA is being gutted. Civil rights protections being gutted. Man, this stuff has impacts, man, and people want to sit out or be funny or be cute or be okay because they think that they're okay. You know, I'm not with it. I'm not with it, and there's a real cost to that. So I'm gonna pass it on to Rod.
Thanks, brother. There's so much to unpack there. I think, all the things that you talk about are true. And just listening to Brother Ray, I think that's one of the beauties about this country, and free speech, free thought. And so I just want to approach it from a different angle. And I go back to the point of, so what? Take all the things that we know to be fact right now, and I would just ask everyone, so what now? Now that you know that, now that you believe that, what now? Because quite honestly, I'm still very conflicted about the last election and the process that they went through to even identify Kamala Harris as the nominee. And I think what was reflected in that party, and I am so glad that I'm an independent voter and independent thinker, but what was reflected in that party was that they had no unity. I think publicly they tried to, appear unified, but they had no unity. And I think it came to light for me when I heard about the reason that the governor of Pennsylvania wasn't the running mate, strictly because he has aspirations of his own. That's what this free enterprise system is about. That's like me saying, well, I don't want John to be my running mate, even though I know he will do me a solid job, because he wants to be the guy. You know what? Then that should tell me I need to do a great job, so it doesn't matter who wants my job. And I think that's what we're missing in this country. There's so much selfishness, and everybody want to win every time, as opposed to coming together and saying, what's going to work best for the American people? And I will tell you, so reading the book now, and one of the things that they talk about early on in the book is what rallied 18 to 24-year-old men in this country. You pick any race that you want. What really rallied them and made them go out and vote 16% more for the candidate that won than the other candidate? I think people are getting lost in all this rhetoric and all this talk about things that we have no control over, as opposed to saying, okay, what can we control? Understanding, why those folks felt like they needed real solutions to their problems. Did we understand what they were? Coming off the heels of a opioid addiction, understanding how people believe that, the open borders impacted them, their lives, their livelihoods, their communities. I just think we have to do more, and we need to be more deliberate about it. And I will tell you, I haven't seen much from elected officials standing on what they believe, no matter what it costs them. And that's the issue right there. I won't get political about it. I will just say, when you have conversations about term limits, have that conversation with elected officials and see what they think about it. When you have conversations about whether or not people should be given a job for life, have those conversations with people and see what they really believe. I just think we have to have real conversations in this country if we want to make it better for all citizens, right? Because right now, if you look around, it appears that there's a system of haves and have-nots. And I will tell you, for no matter what anyone believes about this country, and I think people from our community have had to fight and struggle for opportunity and equity. But the fact of the matter is that this country has never been stronger than when the middle class was the strongest. And so when you see that dissipating, it makes you wonder what's next. And if you go back in history and you look and see what toppled all the empires from a historical perspective, when the British were in charge, when the Spanish were in charge, what toppled those empires? And I think once you learn and understand that and spend time, getting that knowledge, you can kind of see some of the similarities that are creeping up now. I mean, the debt going up every day, that's something. That's not nothing, So I think instead of, what the challenges are today, think about, okay, what kind of country are you going to leave for your kids and your grandkids? And then when you think about that, what are you doing to help make sure that they're going to be good? Right? Because that's the other part. I don't think enough people are doing that because we want to make it now. We want to consume it now. We want the best of everything now, as opposed to saying, you know what? We better start thinking about making provision for our own loved ones that are going to be left here when we leave here in the next 40 years, 50 years, however many years you're blessed to be here. What's going to happen to the ones that you really love? Are you making provisions for them? So I think that for me, it comes back to control the controllables. And what are you doing that you have control over to help those that you love the most? And with that, I will shoot it over to Dr. B.
And y'all put the nail in the coffin, boy. Shoot. I try to wrap all this up. I think the reason why we're in this predicament now, you have a lot of one issue voters. You have a lot of people, and going back to what you were saying, Rod, have a lot of people who don't want to think about their neighbors' concerns, their neighbors' issues, the generations that are coming after them issues. They want it now. And I have made a note about putting together a plan. You put together a plan, and the plan that you put together may not work or may not be active today, but you're putting together a plan for a situation just like this. And so some of us are better off suited doing this shutdown because guess what? We made a plan, right? We didn't just get ready for the shutdown last week or a month ago. We've been making plans for years to be prepared to go without for a while. Some people didn't do that. So then I go back to the one issue voter because some people only saw their issue, the border, same-sex marriages. They only saw one issue, and that's why we have what we have now. So you gravitated to one person who spoke to your one issue, and you said, yep, I'm going to vote for that person because they speak to my one issue. But what about the other 99 things that are going on with that candidate, or what's going on in your community that could be impacted by you just focusing in on that one issue? Going back to the 7% of Black women and the 16% of Black men that voted for Trump. I'm sure of those 16% and that 7%, some of y'all out of work now because you only looked at one issue. And I know family members that voted for 47 and immediately their business was impacted. Like immediately, like soon as he got in office, some of the things that he changed immediately impacted their business to the point where they had to sell property and, you know, do some things quickly because they was going to be out of business within a matter of months of him being in office. But this was the issue you ran on, that he was going to make us everybody rich. And you know, if you're not in that 1%, he don't care nothing about you. Just look at the lady that's running for governor in Virginia, Winston Sears. He has not stomped for her. He hasn't shown up for her. And then I saw one person said it would be a shame if the NAACP does not support Winston Sears because she's a Black woman running for governor. And it was like, it's not the color of her skin, it's the ideology. And so, you know, and I we on this podcast, right? I hate it when white folks try to tell us how our ideology works best for us. Just be clear. I hate when they do that. And I'm getting off topic here, but the one issue voters cost us when we don't have a plan and you relying on somebody else to give you the answer to your plan, that costs you as well. And so that's where we are now. So we as a people got to plan better, and we gotta vote and think about the generations that are coming after us. You know, okay, you don't have kids, okay. What about the niece and nephew? Or you don't have any niece and nephew? Okay, what about the kids at the elementary school around the corner from your house? You know, you know some kids. Or what about the kids at your church? Oh, you don't go to church? Okay, what about the kids at the Boys and Girls Club? There's some people that's going to be impacted by your decision one way or the other, and we have to be willing. In this day, we got to be willing to expand our horizons and take the time to look at what the politicians stand for, so you be able to intelligently have a conversation about why you selected this person, not because some white evangelical pastor told you to vote for them. But anyway, I digress. I'm done. All right, John, it's yours.
That brother said, "I'm done. I'm done." Hey, we
can roll with this. You know,
yeah. We could have went further, but we covered a lot. We chopped a lot, and you know, just to kind of wrap it up into a bow, like we really hit a lot of the topics just in our conversation, which is just an amazing thing that we always seem to intuitively do. That's why I love, you know, working with you fellas. But yeah, we got to move past the just go vote messaging and discuss everyday activism, you know, mentoring youth and supporting local businesses, attending city council and school board meetings, joining neighborhood associations, advisory boards, volunteering for all kinds of things, voter registration drives, community cleanups. And, you know, we got accountability for ourselves and our leaders, you know, elected officials. And as us, Black men with purpose, we've got to hold ourselves accountable, man. Dr. B, man, close that thing off with power. Rod threw the alley-oop up there, though. You know, just where are people that believe and stand on what they believe, regardless of what the circumstances are going to be? Where is that? This is who I am and what I stand for, and not what is it there for me to gain and what am I willing to sacrifice for selfish reasons, you know? And so we want to challenge you as our viewers and our listeners. You know, when's the last time that you followed up on a promise you made, or a promise that either a local or national politician has made to you? You know, are we following up? Are we checking in? Are we building sustained relationships? We talk about it over and over ad nauseum on this podcast about the fact that we need to not just check in for national level elections, but our vote, you vote for your sheriff, you vote for your attorney general, your district attorney, you vote for all of these, your school board, and all of this that's going to directly impact your community and your neighborhood. And there's so much power and ability to create safe spaces for us in our own neighborhoods. But some of us can tell us who's running for Congress, but can't tell us who's city council in your own city, you know? So we got to talk about that accountability, building those relationships. And we can't change a system that we only visit once every 4 years. So we've got to stand tall. We got to keep doing the best that we can, keep having these conversations. And so we'll be back. I'll get with the fellas and we'll figure the schedule out, but we'll be back a couple more episodes before we take off for the holiday season and then come back in 2026. Looking at the election results now, it looks like it's going to be a really good night for the blue side so far. So, but we'll be checking those out. But before we go, as we always do, I'm going to leave you with a quote. And we've quoted her several times on this podcast, but I think this one is appropriate for the time that we find ourselves in. And the quote is by Maya Angelou, and it basically says, no, it literally and exactly says, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. And so with that, we are going to get out of here. So until next time, peace.